this camera, the extremely user-friendly feature. This is what you want. This is what you need to get started on content creation. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We have a special guest in the building today. It's the SONY. It's the SONY ZV E10. And for those of you who are new here, my name is Samuel Billions. I am an aspiring content creator who just vlogs my daily life and posts it to YouTube. But at the same time, I teach beginner content creators everything that I wish I knew on my journey to content creation. On today's video, I'm going to talk about a budget-friendly camera that I think every beginner content creator can get started with. And by the end of the video, you will learn everything about the camera features, the budget, and you would also be able to decide if it's the best camera for you to go with. I've had the SONY ZV E10 for almost 2 years now, and I can tell you that it's an extremely user-friendly camera. Because in comparison with the Sony a6400, the Sony ZV E10 is literally just more of a point and shoot. It has 3 modes on it, which is for picture mode, slow and quick motion, or just videography. And the simple touch of a button gets you back and forth in between all those 3 modes. So for vloggers or content creators like myself, I would highly recommend this if you're someone who just likes to point and shoot on the go and you don't really have the time to dial in the camera, look at the settings, all that extra stuff. This would definitely be a great camera for you to start with. Now moving on, I'm gonna like to compare this with the Sony a6400, which for a while was the most recommended beginner budget friendly camera. The first thing we're gonna go into when it comes to comparison is the price. I did some research and the cheapest you could get a Sony ZV E10 for at the moment will be directly from Sony, and it's only $599 flat. Well, after tax, it might be a little bit more, but they also have a monthly installment payment of just $50 a month. On the other hand, the cheapest I was able to find the Sony a6400 for was $749 before tax and a minimum monthly payment of $32, but that's from Best Buy. So with that being said, I know you're probably wondering, well, what's the major difference? Why is one more expensive? You know, is it the specs? Is it that? But I would like to actually make this video in layman terms without going too much into specifics like the megapixels and things like that. I know as a beginner myself, when I used to watch these YouTube videos, I used to hear things like, ooh, 24 megapixels, and I used to be confused because now that's more research I had to do. But I will tell you this, the Sony ZV E10 is capable of shooting 4K and also 1080. And most content creators, all we really care about is just 4K. As long as the camera can shoot 4K, we don't care about the megapixels and all that extra stuff. So as far as comparison goes, I would definitely recommend you getting the Sony ZV E10 over the Sony a6400 if you're on a tight budget. So moving on, we have the build and the design of this camera. Now let me tell you about the build, okay? This is a super, when I say super, I mean it's a super lightweight camera. It literally comes in at 12 ounces, which is only about 350 grams, and I'm someone who likes to bake, okay? A cup of flour is about 350 grams, so that's how much this camera weighs. Now, depending on what lens you use, it might start to get heavy, but one thing I would say is that as a vlogger, you don't, like most vloggers don't use heavy lenses. We just use wide angle lenses or a regular zoom lens, which I also use, so I can tell you that this is super lightweight. Matter of fact, I weighed this on a scale compared to this glass of water right here, and this glass of water is 200 grams heavier than this camera and the lens that I currently have on it. So that's just a light comparison for you to really get a view of what I'm talking about. The Sony ZV E10 also comes in 100 grams lighter than the Sony a6400, so once again, it's a runner-up for me as a go-to choice for beginner content creators. One more thing I personally like when it comes to the build and design of this camera is the full flip screen. As vloggers, having a full flip screen is extremely essential because you want to see what you're doing. You want to make sure you're in frame, you have the right angle, and this just really comes in clutch. Another feature I really like about the Sony ZV E10 is its touchscreen function. So with the touchscreen, we can easily click on a subject to track it or to focus more on it. Moving on, we're going to speak about the image and video quality of the Sony ZV E10, and there's 2 major aspects I would like to cover, which every beginner wants to know about. It's something I wish I knew about when I first started, and that is the 4K recording and also how well it does in low light. When it comes to recording in 4K, this camera is very sharp, it's very detailed, and it's great for YouTube or social media videos. So I'm just gonna throw in some footage of me actually outdoors in public with the natural light so you can see what it looks like for yourself. Was that good enough? All right. And when it comes to shooting in low light, I want to say this camera does a great job of actually looking pretty decent without too much noise on the camera. So I will put in the footage as well of me doing something at nighttime so you can see what it looks like. Moving on, let's talk about the audio features of this camera. The Sony ZV E10 comes with a built-in microphone at the top of it, and this mic actually does a pretty great job at actually sounding clear. The only issue I do have with it is I noticed if you're far away, then it might not be the best, but that's totally normal. I won't be that picky person who's like, oh, it doesn't get my voice. No, it does a great job. I'm also going to show you a footage of me speaking to the camera so you can hear what the mic quality sounds like for itself. And I do have the dead cat on the microphone right now, so there's a lot of wind going on, but I don't know if you can hear it. We'll find out once we get home. Anyways, time to head home and go look at the rest of the footage and keep updating you guys about why the Sony ZV E10 is the perfect camera for you. Another key aspect of the Sony ZV E10 audio is that it comes with a dead cat. A dead cat is pretty much this furry tool that helps you reduce wind noises, and it has a hot shoe spot which you could just connect this dead cat into, just like that. And now let's say you're outdoors, you have a lot more noise reduction because the dead cat is helping you block out all those extra the whooshes that go into the camera. So I'm also going to play a video using the dead cat so that way you guys can see how it works. I am in the car, so the wind is definitely reduced, but I know there's people who like to vlog in the car, so for your sake I'm going to turn on my car. Oh, there we go. And let's see if you can still hear much noises while I'm speaking. Okay, we can hear the car humming, so do you guys hear me clearly? I'm just gonna say random things over the microphone and see if the camera separates my voice out from the background noise. Let's see how good enough that works for you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, last but not least, when it comes to another audio feature that I really like about the Sony ZV E10 is that it has an external mic output, which allows you to connect an external mic to it. And remember what I was talking about when I said if you're too far away, it might be hard for you to hear yourself? Well, that's not going to be a problem anymore because now you have your wireless microphone that you can just talk into. Or if you have a regular shotgun mic, you can just plug that on there and just be on the go. So I would also put a footage of me testing this wireless mic out on the Sony ZV E10. The effectiveness of having a wireless microphone. So I'm going to walk all the way down there, grab some napkins, and I'll be right back. And we're going. Boom, boom, boom. Grab a napkin. Over here. And then make my way back to you. Ta-da! How's that for you, huh? Another thing I really like about the Sony ZV E10 is how much focus it actually has on the go. Meaning when I'm shooting a video, for example, when I'm walking around, talking, doing things, it does a good job of still keeping my face in focus because it's tracking my eyes. One thing I would like to mention about the autofocus when it comes to face tracking is that the lens you use might affect how good your auto tracking is. But at the end of this video, I'm going to cover some lenses that I think are the best for the Sony ZV E10. Another aspect of the autofocus that the Sony ZV E10 does a great job of is the product showcasing. What I mean by this is, let's say you wanted to get a B-roll shot of a subject. It does a great job at separating the subject or the object from the background and making whatever you really want to focus the main focus of the video. I will show you guys a shot of me maybe eating something and you can see how fast it might switch from my face to the food I will be eating. Now moving on to another topic as to why the Sony ZV E10 is a great beginner-friendly camera. I want to talk about the different creative styles that this camera has, because I know most beginners want to try some cinematic stuff. You do have the ability to actually pick between a standard picture profile, a vivid picture profile. You have portrait mode, landscape mode, sunset, black and white, and all these different modes do different things. Another thing about these modes is that you could also directly adjust it. Meaning, let's say you chose a standard mode and you felt like there wasn't enough saturation for you in there, you could always manually just bump up the saturation. But as all beginners like myself, when I first started, I did really always just use my camera in auto for the most part. And this camera does a great job at helping you decide what setting is best depending on your environment. So when it comes to vlogging, you actually don't have to do much thinking if you just set your camera to auto. But if you guys do want me to make a detailed camera setup for the best settings possible, let me know in the comment section and I'll get that video going for you. The last thing I would like to talk about when it comes to the practical and pretty much actual features of this camera would be the menu. So it does have a super easy menu. Sony really did a great job at creating this camera when it comes to how user friendly it is, because on the menu it tells you what you're looking for, the ISO, the f-stop, shutter speed. All that is on there and can just be easily controlled. You have a button up here which you could just press to record. You have a record one, and at any given moment you could switch from video to picture mode to SMQ mode, which is a short version for slow and quick motion. I believe that's all the practical feature aspects I've already covered on this camera. So now let's move on to the main thing you guys would be asking. What's the best lens to use for your Sony ZV E10? Well, there's good news, okay? The good news is that the Sony ZV E10 is a camera that has interchangeable lens control, meaning I can use almost any lens on this camera. It is an APS-C sensor camera, so that's one thing you do have to keep in mind, is that you might have some crop in your footage. The best lens I like to use when vlogging on my Sony ZV E10 is the Sony 11 f1.8 lens. I just feel like it does a great job actually getting the background, and also with the f1.8 there's enough blur and I just really stand out in the vlogs. However, when I do have this camera on a tripod, if I'm not vlogging, I always recommend the Tamron 20 f2.8 lens. The Tamron 20 is my go-to lens for both pictures and just standstill shots when I'm setting the camera on a tripod. I do have a variety of lenses that I'm going to show you guys on the Sony ZV E10. But one thing I'll also like to cover is the Sony ZV E10 kit lens itself. So if you're a beginner who's tight on budget, I would actually recommend you buying the kit lens. It's just like $100 extra for you together with the camera, but the quality on this lens is actually underrated. I just feel like I've been exposed to quote unquote like better, more expensive things, so it kind of feels cool to just use an expensive lens. But honestly, if I was to go back in my beginner days, I mean, I did use this lens when I first started, so I would definitely recommend this. And I'm also going to put up some footage of what this lens looks like on the camera. Next aspect I'd like to talk about is the battery life of the Sony ZV E10. So I would say this camera does a pretty great job at actually staying on for a long time. I think the longest I've used it for just on the go was almost 3 hours. And shooting in 4K, that is a long time. But I would definitely recommend you do get extra batteries if you're going to be shooting for longer periods of time. When it comes to the power options, you do have a USB-C port available that you could charge it with while you're actually recording, but I personally won't recommend that. I'm just not someone who plays with electricity. I don't know, I like my life. On the other hand, you could also get yourself some sort of portable charger, and boom, there you have it, just charge it on the go. I feel like I've spent a lot of time telling you everything I like about this camera, so now let's talk about the things that I don't like about this camera. One thing for sure is this: it overheats randomly. It's like once in a blue moon, but it's so unexpected. There's something about overheating cameras, is that once your camera overheats one time, you're always gonna have that feeling. You're like, whoa, when's the next time this is gonna happen? You never know. Like I told you, I've shot for this camera for almost 3 hours before. no overheating. And then one random day, I was like 30 minutes into a shoot, boop, camera goes up. I was like, huh? That's just one thing I noticed about this camera, and it's only done that to me about 2-3 times. So I really can't even really say that that's a complaint, because I was making a food video, so there was probably a lot of heat just going towards the camera, which is why it happened all those times. That's just one thing I'll mention. Maybe if you're someone out there who makes food videos, or if it's extremely hot where you record it, it might overheat fast. Honestly, I feel like that's all I don't really like about the camera. Everything else, I think it does a pretty great job. I do have a Sony FX30 as well, and I've also had many other cameras in the past. And this, like I'm telling you, it's one of my everyday. Matter of fact, it is my everyday go-to camera at this moment, because I've been doing a lot of vlogs lately, and just because of how lightweight it is and how easy it is to set up, this is majorly what I use. So based upon everything we've talked about, like the image quality, 4K recording, the price, like the price of this camera, you can't beat this. The price of this camera at 4K, the built-in microphone, the dead cat, and all the other features it has to, especially the extremely user-friendly feature. I would definitely recommend this camera for any beginners out there. Get started with this. Christmas is right around the corner. Tell your family, wherever is buying your camera, this is what you want. This is what you need to get started on content creation. If there's any more specific questions you'd like me to answer about this camera, just drop it down in the comment section, and I would also link this camera and all my other accessories to my Amazon storefront. I do get a little bit of commission from it, and that actually helps me keep this channel going. And once you do get the camera, I'm very sure, and I can guarantee you, you're definitely gonna have a great time filming with this camera. That's all I have for today's video. I'll see you guys in the next video. Go watch it. Peace out.